Welcome to PLUSone, the series where each month I look at the free games on PlayStation Plus and tell you if they're worth the download. After all, the games may be free, but your time is valuable. It's time we close out September 2018's PS Plus games with another double review, and today's theme is old school. The two remaining games are Foul Play, an old-timey beat-em-up game, and the 20th anniversary edition of Another World, the 1991 platformer classic that influenced a generation. One game that looks old school, and another that is old school. Are either of these very different games worth your time and hard drive space? Let's find out. First up is Foul Play, a 2013 game that was actually one of Devolver Digital's first published games. This 2D beat-em-up game puts you in a turn-of-the-century UK play. You take control of Baron Dashforth, who, along with his protege Scamprick, puts on 5 different stage plays focused around the lost field of demonology. The entire game focuses around this play aesthetic. Instead of a health bar, you have a crowd engagement meter. Your enemies are just other actors in sometimes horrible costumes. The crowd will sometimes yell to suggest optional objectives, and you can sometimes see the theater's janitor accidentally pop up on stage. It's a magnificent aesthetic, and it absolutely works for this game. What works just as well is the core combat, which also feels incredibly satisfying. You can press square for your basic attacks, triangle as a launch move, and R2 to dodge. When an enemy is about to attack, a little icon will pop up above their heads, at which point you can press circle to parry and continue racking up the carnage. The window on the parry is incredibly wide, although it does narrow in later plays, but this forgiving design makes sense as Foul Play starts throwing upwards of a dozen enemies on screen at once. Beating down these baddies and seeing your combo multiplier, your score multiplier, and the crowd all go wild is fantastic, and while I didn't have the chance to play the co-op, I can only imagine it gets more fun with a friend. The main problem in Foul Play is that each play's acts tend to overstay their welcome. You're only given a couple different enemy types per level, and each level runs about 10 minutes. That wouldn't be too bad if the game didn't love to stop every other screen for 2 quick lines of dialogue, in the process breaking your combo. You really can't rack up an insane score because of this, and it segments the levels a little bit too much for my taste. In total, the game might run you 3 to 4 hours of total game time, with a little bit more time added on if you decide to go for the Platinum Trophy. I think it's still definitely worth a +1 to your collection in spite of the repetition though, especially if you have somebody to play it with online or locally. The old school theme is so damn charming, and really, repetition is expected in this genre of games, so who am I to complain about that? Next up is Another World, or as we Americans may know it, Out of This World, a 1991 adventure platformer made by one man. This game often receives a ton of credit for its minimalistic cinematic style, with not a single word uttered throughout the short adventure and no HUD of any sort to guide you through the journey. It's been cited as an influence on game designers such as Suda51, the creator of the Silent Hill franchise, Fumito Ueda, also known as the mind behind Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian, and Hideo Kojima, best known for being Hideo Kojima. I was skeptical after the first few screens, but I kind of see the hype behind this one. To step back a bit, the game places you in the shoes of Lester, a scientist who's been teleported to a mysterious planet where everything wants to kill him. There's no guide for you to know where to proceed. You'll simply walk around each screen, finding out what will kill you and when, and then trying to avoid those things so that you can keep progressing. The controls are incredibly stiff, and being even a pixel off of the game's demanding precision means that you'll die and be reset to the last checkpoint. Checkpoints tend to occur every few rooms, thankfully, so it becomes a test of muscle memory more than anything else. The whole game is a test of your mettle, and I can't exactly describe it, but the atmosphere is palpable. The gameplay is frustrating, but something about this world drives you to want to keep going, to find out what's next, even if what's next is probably just more death. Part of this is due to how impressive Lester's animations are. Despite the sprites themselves looking amateurish by modern standards, the actual movement is oddly fluid, especially for a game at the start of the 90s. While most of its contemporaries very clearly feel like games, Another World's animations make it feel like an experience. When playing, you can genuinely see the influence on games like Metal Gear, as I mentioned earlier. And later on, when you start working with the planet's one friendly alien, you see shades of what Ico would bring to the table 10 years later. After the first few minutes of repeating the same few screens, I expected this game to be a hard pass, but I've come around on this one. I think Another World is worth a +1 so you can see for yourself just how strange it is to play a game and feel yourself slowly realizing its influence on the industry. Keep in mind, it's certainly not something that I would call good as a game in the modern light. It's not a long game either, maybe an hour and change. I would go as far to say that by the time you beat it, you'll probably have spent more time dying than actually playing. But even if you don't finish the game and get the few trophies it has to offer, I think you'll come out of it with at least an appreciation of Another World as a piece of gaming history, regardless of if you enjoy the very dated gameplay or not. So there you have it, the rare double +1, and for two very different games too. As far as the file sizes go, Another World will take up fewer than 200 megabytes on your hard drive, and Foul Play stacks up at just under 4.5 gigs. For those of you watching after September, Another World is normally priced at $8 and Foul Play is $10. I think both of these are a bit steep for what's offered, but depending on your circumstances, $5 would be relatively fair for either. With all that said, thanks for watching. Let me know what PS Plus game from September was your favorite in the comments down below, and what games you're hoping for October. While you're down there, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more.